Welcome to the Den, the Dark Entertainment Network. I am the Gothic Rose, and this is a channel where the news meets conspiracy theories. It makes babies in my brain, and it comes out my mouth. If this is your type of content, be sure to like, follow, subscribe, and hit that bell, because I am not going to stop. Welcome back, dear fiends of the Den. We are still talking the Epstein conspiracy because we cannot let this drop. I am tying everything together with the Murdoch lawsuit and it all, but we thought that Virginia Giuffre, or Virginia Roberts as she was known back when she worked at Mar-a-Lago at 16 years old, was saying that Mar-a-Lago was a breeding ground for trafficking. And then Trump saying that Epstein stole her from Mar-a-Lago. We thought that was the pinnacle, but no, last night Fox News drops that Kash Patel found burn bags relating to the Trump-Russia, we'll call it a hoax, but I'm not really sure that it was. Let's dive in. Here's the breakdown. In a week, where burn bags were burst open and billionaires face deposition, the fixers are sweating. Kash Patel's discovery of Trump-Russia documents buried in FBI headquarters collides with Trump's aggressive push to depose Rupert Murdoch over a defamation suit. And somewhere from the shadows, Jeffrey Epstein's brother reemerges with explosive claims about the 2016 election. So let's see what happened, because I think we've all been lied to for a very long time. In yesterday's episode, we heard audio from both Virginia Giuffre talking about Mar-a-Lago and Ghislaine Maxwell, and we heard audio from Donald Trump talking about Epstein stealing these girls from his Mar-a-Lago spa. I mean, the more you let the man speak, the bigger the shovel that gets to dig himself that hole. We have some audio that's resurfaced from Jeffrey Epstein's brother talking about how the 2016 election should have been canceled, which implicates both candidates. That would be Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, who were friends, and their link is Jeffrey Epstein. So it is, of course, possible that if Bill Clinton had something to do with Jeffrey Epstein, Hillary Clinton would know. Same would go for if Donald Trump had something to do with Jeffrey Epstein, Melania Trump would definitely know. Now, we know that the inappropriate behavior that started the whole QAnon MAGA movement, thinking that Donald Trump was going to expose a pedophilia ring in the United States, came from Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump ending their friendship, and Donald Trump citing inappropriate behavior, which we just found out yesterday was Jeffrey Epstein, quote, stealing girls from Donald Trump's spa, many of them underage, which sounds more like there was a business transaction involved. Now, we've got Rupert Murdoch, who Trump wants deposed because of his age and failing health and all of these things related to this $10 billion lawsuit. Now, let's talk about how one of his publications, the Wall Street Journal, is going against Trump, but his Fox News that makes the money on the MAGA people have just really sort of, I think, tried to help him, but to me, this sounds weird. So here's what happened. Kash Patel said that he found these burn bags full of Trump-Russia documents that were never meant to be public in a secret room inside FBI headquarters. Now, this would have been back from 2016. Why are they just now found 9 years later in 2025? So the annex contains underlying intelligence Durham reviewed, and this is special counsel John Durham, but didn't include in the public version of his report. So it reveals that credible foreign sources warned U.S. officials before the FBI launch its Trump-Russia probe called Crossfire Hurricane that the Bureau might be planning to spread a false collusion narrative. Interesting. And then we go back to, again, George Soros. So some of the intelligence came from hacked emails allegedly tied to George Soros's Open Society Foundations, and these emails suggest a coordinated media strategy to demonize Trump and Putin, allegedly approved by Hillary Clinton. Now, I'm sorry, but demonizing Putin is not necessarily a bad thing. He is a madman. And it says the annex reportedly predicted the FBI's actions with alarming specificity, suggesting a premeditated effort to shape public perception, which doesn't make any sense because public perception of Donald Trump within his base has always been good until the Epstein files. So this goes on to say that the Senate Judiciary Chair, Chuck Grassley, who is overseeing its release, calls it part of one of the biggest political scandals and cover-ups in American history, but Trump won that election. Why are they going back to an election that he won? This is a distraction from the Epstein files. So, of course, now this annex from 2016 is now being declassified by a coalition, including CIA Director John Ratcliffe, DNI Tulsi Gabbard, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and NSA Acting Director William Hartman. And once released, it could reshape public understanding of how the Trump-Russia narrative was constructed and by whom, but no one cares about the Trump-Russia narrative anymore. We care about the Epstein files. And this leads us to PIZZAGate. So PIZZAGate is a QAnon, some sort of conspiracy theory, and it came about again in 2016 during the final weeks of the US presidential election. Now, it falsely claimed, because there is no proof, that Democratic Party elites, including Hillary Clinton and her campaign chair, John Podesta, were running a child sex trafficking ring out of a Washington, D.C. pizzeria called Comet Ping Pong. So again, this comes from WikiLeaks in November of 2016. So if this was not true, then how could these WikiLeaks from George Soros's emails be true? So all of these online forums, 4chan and Reddit, began interpreting words like pizza and cheese as code for pedophilia, and the theory was amplified by alt-right influencers, fake news sites, and social media accounts pushing anti-Clinton narratives. So on the one hand, you're saying that the Trump-Russia probe was to push an anti-Trump campaign. On the other hand, PIZZAGate was to push an anti-Hillary Clinton campaign. So how are either of these a problem? The only issue is that there were real world consequences to PIZZAGate. So on December 4th, 2016, a man from North Carolina entered Comet Ping Pong with an AR-15 rifle, fired shots, and tried to self-investigate these claims. Now, no one was injured, but this whole incident showed how online disinformation can lead to real-world violence. And the restaurant's owner and the staff received death threats, and the business became a target of harassment. So PIZZAGate is now considered a precursor to QAnon, and QAnon thought that JFK Jr. was not dead and coming back to work with Trump, but somehow we got RFK Jr., which is way worse. And it demonstrated how weaponized misinformation, especially when tied to emotionally charged topics like child abuse, can radicalize individuals and undermine public trust. So all of this, every single thing that we are seeing right now is trying to undermine public trust on the left and on the right. And I'm just telling you guys that if we don't unite against all of the bullshit and stop saying it's the Democrats, it's the Republicans, instead of it's a mix of both of them who are screwing with us to stay rich and in power, we are screwed. So there you have it. Thank you for joining me in the den. And of course, let me know what you think in the comments. If you've got something to say, send me an email at welcometothedenpodcast@gmail.com.